when he has a Dawn under him, once per turn during your turn, like if you KO as a character, he gains 1 active Dawn, which is really crazy for your ramp, especially when you pair it with Onigashima, because you could get to 10 Dawn like way faster than your opponent, and like it takes your opponent like 1 or 2 turns to catch up to the amount of resources you have, and by then like you've already dropped like a ton of bombs on the field where they can't really deal with it. So this deck is just super fun. You also get like all of the cool plays from purple, like Perona, and like look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you get like the defensive events. He's just a really fun deck to play right now, and I definitely recommend trying him out. So let's get into the video. For my 1-drops, I play for Perona. Perona is great just because you could look at the top 5 cards of your deck and rearrange them in any order. This lets you grab like pretty much whatever you need or whatever you think you're gonna need in the moment. She's really good for digging into your deck too. So like if you're looking for one specific card and you don't see it in the top 5, you could just bottom deck them and then like kind of roll again and roll like another top 5. She's also one of your best turn 1 plays because especially into green, because you could play her, stack your deck for like an Onigashima or whatever you want, and then usually like green will play something like Jewelry Bonnie and then rest it for its effect to curve out, or even better like Momonosuke. And what you could do on your swing turn is attach 1 Dawn to Kaido leader and swing with Perona. It'll usually go through because they'll have to counter, especially if it's Momonosuke, because Momonosuke is 0 power, so they have to counter with 2 cards instead of 1. And that effectively gives you like 4 Dawn for the turn and also ramps you 1 extra Dawn, so that like when it swings back to you, you have 7 Dawn on turn 3, which is an insane amount to play with. She's just way too good of a card and way too useful to not run. And then we also, for our 1-drops, we run 3 Law. I just run 3 Law just because we're at 4 life. Purple doesn't have any turn 1 plays, and this is definitely one of their best, because all of the purple, the cheapest purple blockers are all obviously 2 cost. So it's really important, like if you go first, to play this Law if you have them in your hand, just so that you could tank that extra life hit, because again, you're a dual color leader, so you have 4 life instead of 5. Keeping up with the blockers, I run 4 Doflamingo. Mingo is really great because obviously he's a blocker and he has the same effect that Perona does, so you could do a lot more deck stacking, a lot more bottom decking if you need to. You could one of Purple's problems is that like you have all these great threats like on the top side, but sometimes you just cannot find them because your only draw power is basically Queen and taking life. So it's really cool to have something where you could like manipulate your hand with, so that you could like draw your 10 cost Kaido or your 7-drop King like right when you need it. It's really important to kind of stack your deck in a way that makes sense. Next we got 3-drop Who's Who. Who's Who is great. I used to run this card at 2 and it felt awful. Now I run it at 3. It does not feel as bad. The reason I don't run it at 4 is because Who's Who starts to like jam up my hand at 4 for some reason. I don't know if that's just a me thing, and he has no counter, which feels even worse. Who's Who's effect is just Dawn -1, KO something with 3 costs or less. They also have a trigger effect to just play the card. So when you take damage, like Who's Who will come out, knock out something potentially. This is really important into your red and your green matchups because you want to be KOing Okiku, you want to be KOing Zoro. So it's just an all-around solid card. I honestly, if someone was running this at 4, I wouldn't blame them. It's crazy for the early game. It's just a solid card all around. You need to be playing this if you're running purple. And then, of course, to round out our 3-drops, I run 4 Onigashima. During your main phase, you just get 1 rested Dawn. It just allows you to ramp into higher resources. It's one of your best turn 2 plays, if not the best, and you're going to be wanting to search for this card at at the early stages of the game, because it just helps you curve out like in the later stages. It's what makes purple so threatening. All right, to start off with our 4-drops, we're playing a little bit of spice. I'm running 4 ulti, which is pretty standard for like any purple deck. She's a 2k counter, which is great. But I am also running the 3 page 1. I love this combo because it actually happens quite often, and your turn 2 is really abysmal, especially into red. And I was coming up with ways to kind of alleviate that, and this is kind of the crossword that I came by. So turn 1, you could kind of like play like maybe Law and Perona, and then when it swings back to your turn, you have 4 Dawn to play with, so you could just play ulti page 1 and still have like 5 Dawn left for next turn to play like Onigashima and something else. You already have so much tempo with 11k stats on the board from this combo, and you get this combo way more often than you do in regular purple, because you could stack your deck. So like if you have ulti in hand and see page 1 at the top 5, you could draw it next turn, or vice versa. It's really great. That's also the reason why like you can run the page 1, is because like page 1 will not clog your hand if you're stacking your deck, right? Because you could always just bottom deck him, or you could always just put him at the bottom of your draw stack. And then usually you'll draw like another look at the top 5 cards of your deck card, and then you can just put him at the bottom again if you don't want him. It's great. And the great thing about ulti is like you only need to get this combo off once for it to be like super valuable, and it lets you like really fight for the board in early stages of the game, where Kaido will usually just give up board pressure and then take life or counter out their hand, which doesn't feel great. To kind of round out our 4-drops, we got Boa Hancock. Boa's just a solid card. You play blue, so you have to run her, honestly. She just says that when she has like a Dawn under her, on attacking or when she's blocking, she gets to draw you a card if you have 5 or less in your hand. Because you have 4 life, you do not want to take hits like you do in like green or purple, because you have less life. You're gonna have less cards in your hand because you're gonna be countering more often, and you just have less cards to draw with from your life pool. So it's really important that you have ways to replenish your hand, and Boa is one of the best ways to do that. Starting off with our 5-drops, we got 5-drop King. King is great, or sorry, Queen. Queen is great because he's a great blocker with a good stat line at 6k. So with like a 2k counter in hand, they have to go up to 8k to deal with it, which is pretty significant. Also, his effect is crazy. It is on play Dawn -1, draw 2, trash 1 card. This is great for like getting Onigashimas out of your hand, and it goes even better with this blue deck because you could because you're running Perona and Doflamingo, you could actually make it so that like you know exactly what 2 cards are going to be coming out of the top of that deck, and that could be really important for like just digging for your options. Like, you know, if you want a 10-drop Kaido next turn, or you want to like do a 7-drop King play next turn, he just lets you do so much more with that instead of just like banking and like praying and pleading that you grab the cards. Most of the time you're going to know what you're going to draw into. And finally, we got, to round out our 5-drops, we got X-Drake. X-Drake, just a really solid card. Honestly, if you're playing purple, you can't not run him. He's a 2k counter. He's a great play on 5 when you have 5 Dawn, because sometimes what can happen is because like you're getting so many destruction effects and ramp, you could get really aggressive with this deck, so they'll usually have like less cards in hand sometimes, and then you could really punish them with an X-Drake on top of that, because then they have like a 3-card hand or something like that. They've played out their board, and then you just drop X-Drake, and now their hand size is even smaller, and they're probably holding like their best cards in that hand. So he's great. Honestly, not a lot to say about X-Drake. All right, so the only 6-drop we run, 2 Kings. I love King. He's one of your best plays off of your Onigashima turn. So sometimes you are not gonna get that like really nice like KO on when you swing. So you kind of just gotta go for the regular purple play. you know, if they play like a Robin or no Kiku, that's getting popped, and you could just get a 7-drop, which is amazing. Yeah, it just costs a Dawn to pop a 4-drop or less, so just a really solid card. Honestly, a card that I want to run at 3, we have 2-drop, we have 2 7-drop King. This card is so amazing, and this card gets even better because you could play him on your turn 3, so they usually, like, it'll usually catch them way off guard, because usually when purple goes first, the max amount of Dawn they have on that turn is 6, so they're gonna play out their board normally, and then you're just gonna drop King on them, pop 2 cards. It's really good. You could pop like Okiku blocker and everything like that. It's one of the best cards to play into red. It just completely poops on their tempo and swings the game in your favor. They're going to be on the back foot because they have to deal with something. They have to deal with a 7-drop. So sometimes, like, I'll drop this and they have to, like, Otama Pistol, which takes up their entire turn. So he's just a really useful card. I'd run him at 3 if I were to change this list, honestly. All right, and then we also run 2 9-drop Kaido. Honestly, not a lot to say about this one. He's a great card. Dawn -5, pop something 6 cost or less, and then gain Rush. Because you're ramping so hard with this deck, he could come out as soon as turn 4, which is honestly crazy. And I forgot to mention also, Kaido's leader effect is really good for getting you back in the game after you do your Dawn minus effects, because your Dawn minus effects go on first. So then, like, if I'm at 10 Dawn and I attach 1 Dawn onto Kaido leader, and then play 9-drop Kaido, I'm gonna lose that 5 Dawn first, and then Kaido's leader skill is gonna take into effect because I KO'd something, and it's gonna give me 1 extra Dawn, which is really significant because it lets you play your big cards over and over again, and it lets you get back your Dawn when normally you'd have to, like, wait a turn or 2. And then, of course, we're running purple, so we gotta run 10-drop Kaido. This card is great into red-green, into red, especially into blue, actually, too, because, like, Dofi blue just builds, like, a really big board on you. So, like, when you just wipe it, it feels so nice. And the significant thing about playing it in this deck is you get to grab Kaido faster sometimes, because you have Onigashima, you have 2 ways of ramping, you have 2 consistent ways of ramping. So then sometimes, like, you'll drop him while you're still on 3 life, and it'll be crazy. So and then, like, after that, I mean, what are they gonna do? He sticks on the board unless they have, like, round table. He's a real nuisance, and, like, the only counterplay to him is you get 10 cost Kaido'd, or you have, like, an extraneous amount of blockers. But either way, he's getting tons of value, especially when you're cheating him out so early because of your Dawn. All right, so for the events, I run 4 Blast Breath. Just pretend these 2 Spada is Blast Breath. I'm actually gonna, like, do it like this. But I run 4 of these. I can't find my 2 extra ones for the life of me. But yeah, Blast Breath, not a lot to explain there. Paying 1 active Dawn to get 4k counter is absolutely insane. Also, again, with this deck, it's really interesting because you gain 1 active Dawn when you KO something. So a lot of the time, like, you'll curve out, KO something, and then now you have the chance to play Blast Breath because you have 1 active Dawn after you've, like, completely curved out your Dawn. So he's just, like, this card is just really good for being defensive and also being offensive. And then final card of the deck, we run 2 Love Beam. Because you're countering so much in the early game, you're gonna lose a lot of your cards. So you usually get Love Beams draw, like, pretty often. The only reason why I don't run this at a higher rate is because having 2 Dawn up is really tough for this deck, honestly, like, because your biggest plays are, like, they cost a lot, and you're gonna want to do more with your Dawn. So it's not very often you have, like, 2 Dawn up. There's usually a better play to have, but having this as an option is really great. It's just too good not to run. All right, so that was the video, guys. I definitely recommend playing this deck, or at least trying it out. It's super fun. If you guys have any recommendations, let me know, because yeah, I scrubbed out at my locals, but I've been having a lot of fun playing this and testing this online. Make sure to like and subscribe, comment at me some questions that you may have, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks.